I enjoyed it, but I didn't think I had the bug. I got the bug. I was in a lot of musical productions, and I met a fellow named I knew him as Bob Armstrong. He's called R.G. Armstrong now. He's about 80. He's an actor, and he wrote a show called Egyptland, and it was roughly based on the life of Leadbelly, and we didn't have any black actors at that time. And he thought I could play that part. So I did play it. And apparently I did it very well, because it came up in my life later. I was telling you about Egyptland, and I forget the name of the character now, but I played it. And that was the first dramatic work I'd ever done. I did take one acting course under Foster Fitzsimmons, who had directed The Gondoliers. And Foster, he remained a friend of mine till his death. And he was a good director, and he thought I had something. He told his wife to come over to rehearsal one time. He says, "This boy's got something. I don't know what it is, but he's got something." So I knew that family. But jumping ahead a little bit now, I told you that Ainsley Pryor was in the Lost Colony and we were friends. And I had gone to this audition in New York, which I failed. Ainsley and his wife came to New York to show us the town. And he said, "Don't go to any nightclubs till I get there." And I didn't. And he came, and we went to all the big places, 21, Tooth Shore, Eddie Condon's, you name them. Ainsley passed out before the evening was over. And he was always afraid to fly. So we went back to Raleigh by train. My town where I taught was close to Raleigh. And he was telling me about a show he was going to do called The Drunkard. It's an old melodrama. And that he needed some oleo acts. That's acts in front of the curtain while they changed scenery. Well, I had one little thing that I had done down here. Some fellows put some material together for me, and we called it the Preacher Act. It had a sermon, which was Preacher and the Bear. I had announcements. I had a closing hymn, which was an old song called In the Pines. So he said, "Well, come over and audition that." And I did, and he said, "Well, that's funny, but we can't use those announcements. They're dirty." So a voice said to me, "Tell him you'll write some new ones." So I did. I told him, I said, "I'll write some new ones." Well, I went home and I wrote some new announcements. And I went to the show. We had a blind piano player named Paul Montgomery. And I got laughs that first night. And one of the other oleo acts, a girl singer, didn't show up. Her husband wouldn't let her. I don't know why. And so I was driving a 41 Chevrolet Coupe. I was driving back to Goldsboro that night after the show. And I got an idea. I can't remember the monologue because most of the stuff I've ever done I never wrote down. I just had it in my mind. So Johnny Ray had a hit called Please Mr. Sun at that time. And I got an idea that I could write a monologue about that song, that there's a deeper meaning to these songs than most people might know. So I did. I made up a monologue. I'd sing a verse. "Talk to her, please, Mr. Sun." Then I'd stop and I'd tell them what that meant. And I made up a whole story about this boy and girl in love with one another. And I got big laughs. And believe it or not, they made me come back on the stage and sing the song all the way through. Well, I did that till the play closed. But I knew I had hold of something. That was in the spring. No, it was still winter, 1952. So I gave them my notice at school, and they didn't want me to quit. Mr. Twyford was the principal. He said, what would it take for you to stay? I said, I can't stay. He said, you're never going to make any money running around the country. And so I gave him my notice and had an idea to do shows for civic clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary, and like that. Most of the time they just get a after-dinner speaker. And I fancied myself an entertainer. Well, that same summer, 1952, a man from the Shrine Club over on the beach, was on the beach at that time, asked me, didn't some of us in the Lost Colony want to put on some shows for him once a week? I said, let me talk to my friends. So there'd be anywhere from 9 to 11 of us in the show. 4 of them formed a quartet, a beautiful quartet, that they sang popular songs unaccompanied. The alto wrote the arrangements, and it was gorgeous. It would be dark, and they'd come out and they'd sit on these little steps, and then you'd hear, then they'd sing. Oh, and they were a hit. They were a hit. And I was I put the shows together, and I was the master of ceremonies, and I handled the comedy.